This is my first lightsaber. I call it Wave. One of the trials of a Jedi Knight is to build their own lightsaber. This takes a great deal of skill and concentration. Not only must a Jedi Padawan go on a pilgrimage to find a kyber crystal, but they must use the Force to assemble the lightsaber. In the real world, there are many fine lightsabers online for sale that look fantastic. However, I wanted the challenge and experience of building my own in the Jedi tradition. I scoured the internet and saw several different methods. The most important thing to me was making sure the blade was bright and looked like a real lightsaber, at least on camera. It also would need to be wielded with the same movement capacity of a real weapon, like a real sword. After all, this was largely about fitness and getting out and doing something, not for simple ornamentation on the wall. The secret sauce to getting the blade to look right is a bright strip of LEDs inside a tough piece of polycarbonate tubing, all of which could be ordered online. LED strips are generally not cheap, but affordable enough. Nowadays you can get NeoPixel LED strips that have all kinds of interesting effects, but I was shooting for starting very simple. No soundboard, no crazy effects, just a good bright lightsaber that I would use for training and personal expression. My first LED strips were all wrong. They were covered in a plastic sheathing that wouldn't easily fit inside my polycarbonate tubing. I also discovered that they were 24 volt LEDs, not 12 volt, which meant it would take 16 AA batteries to power them. This wouldn't fit well in my hilt at all. Eventually I got the right LEDs, and to get the lighting to be more diffuse or uniform rather than being able to make out each individual LED inside the tube, I wrapped them in cling wrap and sanded the polycarbonate tubing to sort of frost it. This still wasn't satisfactory to me, so I added a light coat of spray paint. And although my paint job wasn't perfect, on camera the effect was more than satisfactory. I have to say though, that with the naked eye you can kind of make out an uneven paint, and you can get a glimpse of this when I swing it. But to me this is okay. This is my first lightsaber after all. No doubt there would be many imperfections. We could say that my first lightsaber was just slightly unstable, kind of like Kylo Ren's lightsaber, but not quite that bad. It also fits with the water theme. This lightsaber undulates in small imperceptible waves. It is art. Art is never perfect. Once the blade was figured out, the hilt was next, and this was harder than I thought it would be. Most people use aluminum tubing for the hilts, but I was reluctant to order this online, and instead began to scavenge in the hardware stores around town. Of course, no one had aluminum tubing, but I was able to find some chrome-colored brass tubing in the plumbing section of a hardware store. It would be narrow enough for the blade, but thick enough to hold the battery pack. Plus, if you filed parts of the tubing down, the golden brass color would show, yielding some creative aesthetic options. I would secure the blade deep into one of the brass tubes and make the fits tight with a number of rubber O-rings and secure everything together with a bolt or two. Since I couldn't have the lightsaber powering off all the time while in use, I put the switch down on the bottom of the hilt. So with a little soldering, I wired the battery pack and switch, inserted it all into the hilt, and voila! I had myself a first lightsaber, almost. I wrapped the handle in leather, and this leather wrap is not the greatest, but it does make a pretty good grip with some really sticky epoxy. Now for the good things and the bad things about this particular lightsaber. The good first, it's pretty durable. Polycarbonate tubing is very tough, and I would bet I could spar the lightsaber if I wanted to. The rubber O-rings inside act kind of like a shock absorber. It's simple. If anything goes wrong with it, I'm pretty confident that I can repair it easily. It's very bright, especially on camera. And now for the bad. It does have bits that can interfere with my grip, especially the bolts. I filed the excess off as much as I could, but in future builds, I need to make an insert bolt rather than a protruding one. The nut also came off once, and the protruding bolt left cuts on my hand when I didn't even know it. The other issue is that wherever I've cut the brass tubing, which I've done with a hacksaw, it can leave a nasty, sharp, jagged edge. Now I've filed this down as best as I can, but it's still kind of hazardous. And finally, it's probably a bit heavy for a lightsaber. I'd estimate the total weight to be around 3 pounds. This may not sound heavy, but over time it can drain the wrists and forearms and shoulders, especially when wielding it with one hand. I believe this is because I ordered polycarbonate tubing that was a little bit too thick and made for a weightier blade. The balance point on this saber is just above the hilt, but having weight in the blade can be useful. Of course, it serves to train the muscles in the arms, and when certain swings and spins begin, the momentum can carry the swing forward. Of course, it's other imperfection. It's how I've colored the blade. I'm sure that in the future I'll find ways to get a more uniformly colored blade without sanding and spray painting, but this is an art piece, so this imperfection is more of an artistic quirk, and it looks kind of wavy. This, along with its color and the fact that I practiced with it at the beach in front of the waves, has led to the name Wave. A wave is fluid but powerful. Waves calm the mind, but they are relentless. And so, this is my first lightsaber. I have trained relentlessly with it. It has taught me persistence, given me physical strength, and has cut through the darkness to illuminate the path with heart. Thank you for watching, luminous beings. Until next time.